Welcome to the finishing series of the Ashtanga primary series sequence. So these are a series of poses that you do after the first and the second series, and they're always the same every time, leading us towards Shavasana. So we've just come out of our seated poses through a vinyasa, and we move into urdhva dhanurasana, which sometimes people call bridge pose, but it means upward, urdhva, upward, dhanura, bow. Upward bow pose, urdhva dhanurasana. You start on your back, so you would take your vinyasa, jump through, and come to lay down. I'll show you that. So say you just did your last seated pose, you're either coming out of the primary sequence or the intermediate sequence or the short Ashtanga sequence. So you've ended into Adho Mukha Svanasana. You come through, and instead of sitting in Dandasana, you keep going onto your back with your knees bent. Place your hands around your ankles. Inhale, lift up, squeeze the elbows toward each other. Now, I do have to say that not many people do it in this manner. We will do 3 bridge poses, urdhva dhanurasana poses in a row, so I will show you the different ways. This way works really well for me because I have a short torso and long arms. It's not going to work for every practitioner who does yoga. After 5 breaths, inhale, exhale, lower down. 1 breath on the floor. Inhale, lift up to the second one. Hands clasped underneath. This is much more traditional for what you might see. Rolling toward the edges of the shoulders, really lifting up through the low back to feel those hips raise up into the sky. After 5 breaths, release the hands, lower down 1 vertebrae at a time, ready for number 3. Now you can do either of those 2 versions. Sometimes people now will move into urdhva dhanurasana on the hands and the feet. Inhale, press up. Holding here for 5 breaths. Feeling that reach, that lift. And roll down. Bring your knees into your chest to press. And roll yourself up to sit. Extend your legs straight forward, and we move into Paschimottanasana. We did Paschimottanasana right at the beginning of our seated sequence. This time we move directly into it as we exhale and fold. Take your breath, engaging Uddiyana Bandha. Inhale. Exhale, fold back down into the pose. This time we're here to counterbalance the back bending. So we just bent our back 3 times. Now we're coming forward once again to lengthen out the spine. And we hold here for 5 breaths. Relaxing into it. It feels really nice after doing urdhva dhanurasana 3 times. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, release, vinyasa. Inhale, knees into the chest. Exhale, roll forward, hands step back, hop back, chaturanga. Inhale, urdhva mukha svanasana. Exhale, adho mukha svanasana. We'll jump through into our next pose. Since it's the closing sequence, every time you come through, you will come through and to the back and go into the next pose. We'll get there in a minute. First, let's talk about how you might modify urdhva dhanurasana. Just so you know, some people call bridge pose also Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. So you might hear that. Urdhva dhanurasana can go for all the versions. So we already talked about some ways that you might change this pose. So like I said, not everyone's going to be able to grab the ankles. So most people are probably going to clasp the hands underneath. I even see sometimes I tell people to just press their hands into the floor because maybe their shoulders are too tight to come here, so they come simply here. A really restorative way to change the pose is to use a block. Put a block underneath your hips so you're propped on that block. You're still getting the reach, the lift through the body, but you do not have the pressure of having to hold yourself up. The block is doing the work. So this is a really great way to let people kind of relax and restore. And of course, not everyone is going to be able to move into urdhva dhanurasana lifted. So you might offer it, and if they don't want to do it, then they don't want to do it. But you can give them a choice.